Hello and welcome to Season 6 of the Virtual Coffee Podcast. We are live and in person at Kansas City Developers Conference. This should be our 50th episode of the podcast, but we had some technical difficulties.
And it's the 49th.
This is the 49th, but we're going to pretend like it's very special and that it is the 50th.
Sure, yeah. Well, if we publish it after, then it will.
So this is definitely the 50th episode of the Virtual Coffee Podcast. And
here with me today
is my co-host, Dan.
What up, Beck? How's it going?
Hey, it's gone.
Yeah?
It's gone good. Done with my talk, and I'm very happy to...
She did great.
It wasn't my best performance.
No, it was good.
No.
I saw it.
It happened.
You didn't see it.
It was okay.
You can't.
So people got up and left during my talk, and then I was very thrown off.
I feel like they just...
And I said something that was funny, and nobody laughed.
I laughed.
And then I was like, oh, I'm not really funny.
Yeah, Bekah did a great job at her talk. Todd,
I did an okay talk.
Another Virtual Coffee member, Todd. I saw his talk right before yours. That was also really good. Got Tom Cudd is speaking tomorrow. I think. Who else?
Chris Tamars.
Chris is now, I think, actually.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been good. We got up and got to do in-person coffee this morning, which was a lot of fun. And now we're going to be answering some of the questions that you all submitted. And I think we'll get started.
Yeah, we were supposed to do this live, but there's no Wi-Fi here. That's good. So we're recording and we're going to publish it in a little bit.
Yeah. So.
Sometime.
All right. Ready to get started with some questions?
I guess so.
So we've got some anonymous questions. I've only viewed one of them, and the others we have not viewed at all. So we'll see what those are. And we have some that are not anonymous, and we'll go through those as well.
Okay.
So the first question is an anonymous one, and it is, what time do you go to sleep?
I try to go to sleep like 10-ish most days, you know?
Yeah. I feel like that's also what I go for. Last night, we said we would go to sleep at 11.
Well, you said that. I never promised that.
Okay, well, I said, Dan, I'll meet you from 10 to 11. Mm-hmm. And then we stayed up later.
Yeah. Well, we had catching up to do, and my plane got delayed to infinity, and so I finally made it.
Yeah.
And Bekah.
And then somebody challenged my ability to weight lift, and then I had to take care of that.
Challenging your ability. He was challenging like your form, which is, I think, even more ridiculous.
He was like, really how do you show me how you, how dare you? First of all.
I just don't think he knew who he was talking to, you know?
No.
Yeah.
Don't challenge my weight lift form. Don't mansplain my deadlift.
Especially not at 11:45 at night at a bar.
Yeah. It all ended peacefully, though. I am happy to report.
She deadlifted that guy and then, threw him into the street. I don't know.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly what I did. I did not. I was very kind to him. Maybe. I can't promise. Okay. All right. Let's go with the anonymous questions first.
Wait, was that first one anonymous?
That was an anonymous one.
It was in your notebook.
Yeah, because I wrote it down before, okay?
Oh,
because I was afraid it was going to disappear. I'd never used this anonymous app thing before, and so I wasn't sure. Like, I opened it, and now it's this, like, Snapchat, and it goes away after 50 seconds or something. I'm not sure how Snapchat works.
Technology, I have no idea.
All right, so I hope that these are all appropriate. Well, that one says Netflix and chill, so...
Well, hey.
That's... There we go.
Nope.
Please give me pickup lines that always work.
Well, that's not a question. So
that's a demand. They
failed the.
We don't negotiate.
I mean, just read the instructions, people. It's not hard. We were looking for questions, not demands.
All right, here we go. What extra work goes into landing a full-time international remote role as a first role out of web dev bootcamp with no prior developer experience? That's a really good question. I feel like this is something that we talk a lot about at Virtual Coffee. Maybe not so much the landing an international remote role, because that's a little bit more challenging. Not all companies can work internationally, so you really need to narrow it down to see what companies allow for international remote work.
Right. Yeah, and those points you're going to have to start looking and see if the companies have like support for visa stuff and, lawyers to help you, things like that. There's a lot of like laws and rules and things that can come into play, I think, with international stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But if you set that part of it aside a little bit, right? What kind of stuff can we do coming out of boot camp to like land your first job?
Yeah. I was just talking to someone about this recently. She's going to be learning how to code in a couple of months. She's a mom of a couple of kids. And I think that once you're getting close to applying for jobs, working with other people and building projects together is something that can really help you stand apart, because there's a lot of people coming out of boot camps right now, but a lot of them have experience where they've just worked on their own stuff. They haven't worked collaboratively. They don't communicate aloud with other developers. And when you're going into those interviews, you're going to have to communicate aloud about code. And that can be, I know for me, that was a really hard learning curve. I was not good at speaking code words out loud.
Speaking code words out loud. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a silly way to say that. But like, I think that...
So I told you I wasn't good at it.
I totally agree with that. I'm always a proponent of like building things, as a way to learn. And I think building something with other people is also a very important skill to like start to, it isn't always taught, right? It isn't always taught in a classroom. I know that like lots of boot camps do have collaborative projects as part of their curriculum, but it's a little different, I suppose, when it's not a school project or, boot camp, whatever, a classroom situation. But yeah, like learning, that's like one of the, especially if you're hiring a junior role like that, where you're going to be interviewing, where you're expecting to hire somebody at that level, those sorts of skills are something that can set you as like far apart from other people in the same boat, right? So like the like breadth of technical skills at that level will be like pretty tight, and so ways to like set yourself apart. I think communication skills is like a huge one, right? I mean, if I'm interviewing somebody and they can sort of speak well and have some like, speak well about code, like you were saying, use code words, like whatever, that sort of thing. Are used to like talking out loud or explaining some processes, or even just explaining how a thing works that you built,
Yeah.
Even if it's a thing that's for boot camp, maybe lots of times, I've never been to a boot camp, so I don't know, but like you would turn in the assignment. I don't know, do you do like presentations after you?
We did. So for each of we had like a series of projects that we had to do. And so after each one, we had to walk through the code. And then for the last one, they asked us questions and we had to add on a feature depending on what the interviewer felt would work for the application that you created.
Okay.
So there was live coding that was involved in that.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I feel like you can get somebody who is experienced in the industry to do the same thing with you. So if you have a project that you're using as a portfolio project, then what you can do is say like, hey, would you mind walking through this with me? Suggest like what I can do a code review with somebody, just so you get an understanding of like whether or not your code is written well. I think that you'll always be able to improve on your code, but when you're doing it in isolation and you're often just trying to see like, does this work?
Right.
There's more that goes into coding than does this work? Is it written well or efficiently? Yeah.
Oh, I think that's great. And I think another path to practice that sort of thing is open source as well.
Yeah.
And another thing that we talk about a lot in Virtual Coffee at this podcast is it's another great way to practice those skills and see what works and join other code bases. And like that's another skill that is sometimes maybe a harder one to learn. Not harder one to learn, but maybe not an obvious one to learn. It's like how to dig into an unfamiliar code base, right? And there's some things that you can do to make it easier, but in general, it's very much just practice. It will, like if you practice it, you'll get better at it. And so there's a billion projects out there on GitHub that all are looking for help. And, I don't know, jump in.
Yeah.
We have a lot of episodes where we've talked about like all the reasons why it's a good idea to do it. And like, also like the things to do to get over some anxiety you may have about doing that as a junior developer. Like just jump in or, do some pull requests on just documentation or whatever, just to get your feet wet, like that kind of thing. There's like a lot of stuff like that. So.
Yeah, and I think also it's a pretty easy ask to say like, hey, I really want to get started in open source. I'm a little nervous about this. Is there anybody out there that would be up for mentoring me through it if I'm struggling?
Yeah.
And then that way, you can pair up with someone, you can work on those communication skills, and then you don't have to feel nervous about what you're doing. You have that support.
Agreed. And absolutely agreed. And like join virtual coffee, it's there's a lot of people that are always down to help, that sort of thing. And it's good.
Yeah.
All right. Before we go on, I'm getting really nervous that I forgot to hit record or it didn't work. So I'm just going to go look at it
check
really
it.
quick.
We're good. We've been recording.
Right.
Excellent. Because I was going to make you do the whole thing over.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see. So your first role, and along with landing your first role, I think always finding community, finding people, and remembering that like your network is not just the people you know, it's the network of the people you know. So making connections that are not transactional and like, hey, I want to know you so I can get a job, right? Like get to know people and be their friends, be kind, don't criticize their deadlift form, and then you'll have a better shot at finding a job.
Yeah. Probably just in general, not giving advice to people who didn't ask for it, especially people you don't know.
I mean, like generally speaking, I like it when people give me advice. I know that that's like kind of controversial because a lot of people are like, don't give me advice. I didn't ask for it. But I don't know. I like to hear what other people have to say. And I often ask for advice a lot. I guess that's another bit of advice is ask for advice because not everybody's just going to give it to you. Also, sometimes advice is bad. People give bad
Also
advice,
true.
like also his deadlift stance yesterday. I'll get over that in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, right.
Um,
I'm personally shocked that the drunk guy at the bar last night didn't have perfect deadlift form.
All right, let's go to the next one.
Okay, next question.
I don't know what that says. And what happened? Oh, no.
I don't know.
It might not let me answer. Wait a minute. I don't want to do that. How does a computer get drunk?
Well, do you know the answer?
No.
Screenshots.
Did you submit that question?
I did. That was me. This is a good one, right?
Who was the last dude you texted?
Jesus Christ, people.
Let's see. Probably Dan. Probably you. You were the last one I texted.
Yes. I don't know. I mean, are you asking me? Because I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know who you texted.
I didn't.
You did text me recently.
I did recently text you about this conference. Who was the last dude you texted?
I don't know. One of my friends. One of my friends just took his dog out in the canoe for the first time, and so he was sharing pictures of that, and I said, "That's cool."
Nice.
Yeah.
That was excellent.
Yeah.
So there you have it. We did really well. Those anonymous questions were fantastic. Thank you all for doing such a good job of sending them. We do have a handful of non-anonymous questions. Unanonymous, unanimous questions.
Unanimous?
I think that's the right word.
Unanonymous, I think.
Unanonymous. I wrote one of them down
Oh.
so I wouldn't forget. Okay, this one comes from
Is that a
Meg.
notebook from like 1920 or something?
Listen, I keep buying these notebooks. They sell them at TJ Maxx in a pack of 3. This one says the right stuff. I like these notebooks.
Look at the inside, though. Show them the inside.
What's wrong with the inside?
It looks like it's, paper from the Civil War or something.
Is that what Civil War paper looks like?
I don't know, but probably.
I think you're wrong. And a liar.
Oh, here we go.
All right, this one's from Meg. Is there anything you would have done differently when it comes to virtual coffee? Setup, organization, time commitment, etc. You go first.
I mean, that's a really good question, but it's hard to have an answer for it because everything that has happened has been so organic,
Yeah.
And you think about all of the things that we have going on right now, everything that's in play, and yeah, like I can think of a lot of things that could be better, or right now or whatever. But I think it started from scratch, and like we're like, let's try to build this community, but like start, I don't know, who knows what we would have done, you know what I mean? And it probably, I don't know, it's a good chance it wouldn't have worked, maybe, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like I'd like to think it would have, but the one of the beauties of the community, of the virtual coffee community, is the sort of organic like nature of how all that started. And of course, all of that was like around you, but like it's like one of the reasons why virtual coffee is sort of different and successful. Yeah. I feel like, as opposed to like, I'm trying to think of an example, but I suppose there's people who are like, I'm going to start a community or something, and sometimes they're cool and sometimes they're not, but you never know what it's like. You never know what's going to happen until it happens with like groups of people,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I could think of like a lot of like little instances of times that like, okay, I wish I made a different decision there, but that's less like, that's more just like I make mistakes, not so much like, tactical like planning stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. What about you?
Well, I think it's nice because of like the authenticity and the organic evolution of virtual coffee, that we have more freedom to make mistakes almost, right? Because we know that the people who are coming to virtual coffee are okay with that, because they know that we're human beings, and like we do get things wrong sometimes. I for sure have gotten things wrong on a number of things at virtual coffee, and you try and get them right the next time. You learn your lesson. You apologize when you need to, and I think a lot about what I would do differently, but I actually think it's kind of a strength that we had no idea what we were doing in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because, now that I'm community building professionally, I'm like diving into things like metrics and planning and a lot of different like processes and procedures that I wouldn't have considered before. And I think that sometimes it actually makes me less creative with what the community will look like, because I see what everybody else is doing and it feels like these are the things that you should be doing if you're building a community, because this is what the experts say. And I'm like, sometimes I get caught up in it, like thinking about virtual coffee, and I'm like, no, that's not true to who we are as a community.
Right.
But I'm like trying to think too what I would do differently. I think I would find more ways early on to allow people to support the efforts of virtual coffee, to provide more autonomy for members to do their own things. Like, I'm really enjoying seeing the coffee table groups grow and the different things that we're doing. Ray is doing the virtual coffee speech club now, and like, I love that. That's one of my favorite things. But like finding more ways to empower people to do that. Like, honestly, I wish that I had more time in the day, because I think that we have so many great people at virtual coffee that are willing to provide support for a lot of different things, and finding more ways to empower them to do that is one of those things that I still wish that I could do better.
Yeah. I mean, that's a hard problem, and I know of, both from my experience and from like talking to other people, it's very hard to find people that are willing to like put time and effort into something like a volunteer thing like that, and I think that just goes to show how awesome virtual coffee is. We have all these people that are doing this stuff, and the coffee table groups, almost all of them started before we like, just on their own, right?
Yeah.
Like before we had anything around them. Like, we are building stuff to support them now because they exist already, as opposed to like, we had some idea for coffee table groups and then we're trying to find people to do them or something like that, right? And that's, just goes back to the, the organic nature of virtual coffee. And if we were planning this, you could see like special interest groups being a thing to plan, if you're trying to plan a group ahead of time, or a community. But I don't know. It's hard to imagine like trying to do all this stuff uh, ahead of time or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Also, it's not usually how my brain works that well anyway. I mean, the way that things have gone is what, is obviously like, it's more how my brain works anyway, kind of like
Same.
rolling with things and trying to make things better. But I don't know. It is what it is. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like super proud of us for early on getting a lot of documentation in place, because that has helped to provide a better space for people.
Yeah.
I would like to do a better job of onboarding new community members.
Yep.
And I feel like that from the beginning. So I feel like a lot of the like, would you do differently's are still things that like I would like to do more of now.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Especially now that we have new members coming in. It's so great to see new faces at Virtual Coffee again. That's been a really bright side of the last couple of weeks. But I just want to make sure that everybody's taken care of.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And that's like, so there's like technology stuff that I just want to change now. So it's not even like I wish we had done this differently. It's just, well, now we need it. Like now we need things. Like there's things that we need, so let's change them. The new member thing especially because it's built like originally around Slack,
Yeah.
And that's
that maybe is something I would change.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, like maybe, but like it was really before Discord like took off for people outside of gaming, and I don't know that there's any better option, and it like created the community. Honestly, like it, like you know what I mean. The Zooms and the Slack. It's the whole thing for first however long. I don't know. Whatever, however many months or whatever it was, So yeah. Yeah, there's things that like I'd like to see improved and stuff, but I don't look at them as regrets or whatever, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question is, what's the hardest part of community?
Of like running a community?
Just of community, so you can take it as you see fit.
I don't know, man. All right, so for me, part of as a member of communities is just like it takes emotional energy for me to engage with things, engage with people and do things or whatever. And so sometimes I find myself like just falling out of communities or just like not whatever. And it even happens with virtual coffee sometimes. You and I we talk all the time, like doing management side, but like I'll miss like coffees for weeks because it's like 8:50 in the morning, and it's not, I'm not tired or anything. It's just like I needed a certain amount of a store of energy to be able to like talk to people, especially people I don't know. And I love it, but like sometimes it's hard. And so although I will say like every time that I've felt that way but then still gone, I've been very glad that I went.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's one of those like catch-22s where my brain is like fooling me about it,
Yeah.
But like overcoming that can be hard. And then another thing for me is my memory is really bad, especially with like names and stuff. And like, and so, remembering people that I met or like that I'm supposed to know or that, I ostensibly do know, but have forgotten who they are or what their name is, or, that happens to me like a lot. And it's much easier online because you can kind of like try to Google them or something,
Yeah.
Harder in person. Like it's more embarrassing for me in person. So that's my other struggle. What about you?
Well, I guess the thing that I never would have thought about before this community was last year when Mike passed away. That was like obviously a really hard experience. He was an active community member, like everybody loved him. But then like making decisions about that and having to tell people over and over was I like something that you can't ever be prepared for. And so like experiencing the losses of community members and with community members and like trying to leave space for people to experience grief in different ways.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. I felt like I was stretched beyond my limits of a human being. Like I
Yeah.
went through and you know, it was hard with Mike, but like there have been other losses in the communities, right? Like there have been miscarriages, there have been jobs lost, there have been relationships that are no longer. And when people like confide in you and talk to you about that, it's just one of those. It is definitely the hardest
Yeah.
emotional labor that I have ever had to put in anywhere. It it's like a catch-22 though, right? Like you have to experience like the full humanness to really be close and supportive to the people around you. So like, would I love to not ever have to experience any of those things? Yeah, but I think it's a key part of understanding the people in front of us to be there through it. So
Yeah. No, I mean, I totally agree. And that's like, it was incredibly hard. But I was like, while you were talking just now, I was just like thinking of how thankful I am that like virtual coffee is what it is. And like, it's a place where people can come to like share this horrible thing, like the heavy feelings, it obviously is hard, but I think like I guess my point is just like, that it's worth it. I guess is my point. You know what I mean? Like it is like, it's that it's hard, but like, it's also like, it's what makes virtual coffee like what it is, you know? I mean, that's sort of like connection, the intimate connection, right? Is I started noticing it even before, maybe right around when like our like original Hacktoberfest time, like when we all started like really doing that. But like just I mean, this is gonna like it might sound like silly, but like the fact that like people would just like throw around the heart emoji, and like just to people, like not your best friends or not anything, but just like people like in the community, it made me feel good. I don't know what, like, and to be able to also like also start throwing around the heart emoji or whatever, like it's like kind of a silly way to say it, but like to both share, I guess sharing, yeah, right, like both, like two ways, right, there's like there's good feelings coming both ways, and from everybody in the community, and like I don't know, it's good.
Yeah, I think when you can share your losses openly like that, then you celebrate your wins, just as strongly in the other direction. So it is definitely one of the hardest, but one of the most rewarding to be able to know that there are people out there that trust you to share that information, that that if you're going to be going through something hard, that there are going to be people there too. And I know that my empathy and understanding of other people has definitely, I feel like the Grinch, right? Like,
yeah.
I was a little bit of the Grinch before virtual coffee.
three sizes.
Yeah.
No, that's a great call. And that's a good point. Like, I mean, I have learned so much just about like, expressing myself and connecting with people, and I was gonna say like my like emotional literacy, I feel like, has exploded over the last few years. It reminds me of I forget what we were talking about, but I was talking with somebody, and I was like, they were like, this was earlier in the pandemic when things were like still like a lot more shut down, and they were talking about how they hadn't like met any new people, or they haven't talked, like all this stuff, and I'm like, I've actually like made more friends. I mean, it's because of virtual coffee, once virtual coffee started, but like made more friends, new friends in that time, in the last 3 years, than I had in the last 10 years before that, I think, like put together, and like good friends, not, not just like random Twitter followers or something, you know what I mean? Like, and yeah, I mean, that's all virtual coffee, it's just like, it's good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's great. Like, we get to meet up, some of us.
I know. Well,
which is really, really nice.
Yeah, this is the second time that Bekah and I have met in person. And when did we meet? When did we like start working together? Is 20
July of 2018,
18?
I think.
Okay. Yeah. So
Yep.
2 times every. What year is it now?
22.
23. So 2 times every 3 years, see ech other in person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and we're in Kansas City. So
We're in Kansas City, right.
we
It
live
makes
like
sense.
2 hours from each other. But
It's the only place that would take us, really. So
yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that's understandable. All right, let's see what other
How are we doing on
questions.
time? Oh, we're at-
We still got
we got
some time.
20 minutes ish. 4 hours up. I don't know.
Okay.
Suppose we should have said something on Slack about how we are going live.
I did.
Oh, good job.
Don't worry.
Did you do it on Twitter too?
I didn't on Twitter though. Sorry. Can't
Hey.
cover all the spaces. Uh-oh. What did you do? Did it pause it?
I don't know if it did for that moment, but it is going again. So we're in good shape. The
Uh,
recording, because of our technical issues, we've been recording for like half an hour.
you need to be closer to your mic because I can't hear you.
Has that been true the whole time or just now since I got up?
It was like just since you got up.
Okay, good.
All right, where are the questions?
I don't know.
There was another one.
Oh,
and
you had a question that was, I know it was a trap.
it was a trap?
Yeah, for me.
It was a trap for you. Okay, wait. Let me
I think it was on Twitter.
Twitter. Thanks, Barrett Blake, for saying the Virtual Coffee podcast is a must listen.
Yes. Thank you.
We love it.
He loved it.
Why can't I find it? Okay, maybe it's the history of how Virtual Coffee was found. Oh, yes.
Yes. See?
Go ahead.
What? I didn't found it.
Well, you fired me, and
See, I was just. This is it every time. It starts like that. I didn't fire you. Yeah, you heard it here, folks.
Dan said, I will no longer pay you to do work.
Yes.
So you all are welcome to define that as you see fit. We should have them vote for their favorite virtual coffee host and see who wins.
That doesn't sound very fun for me.
I mean, you're probably a lot of people's favorites.
I doubt it. It'll probably be like just one of our guests will win.
One of our Kirk
Yeah,
is going to
it'll
be the
Kirk.
one that wins.
He would get my vote, honestly.
Yeah. I vote for Kirk too. Everybody vote for Kirk.
All right. It is decided. Kirk's favorite. Oh, I mean, should we like finish the story if people haven't heard this?
I guess so. Okay, so Dan and I worked together.
Yes. And then the shutdown happened and all of my clients stopped giving me work. And so I had to stop giving Bekah work. And then something happened. I don't know.
Yeah, well, the day that I went and picked up my kids' schoolwork, because they said, oh, you're going home. They're going home for 3 weeks, which they never went back that year.
Yeah.
Dan was like, hey, want to catch up? And I was like, oh, no. And it was, oh, no. When Dan hired me right out of boot camp, we didn't do an interview. Like, we just had a conversation.
Yeah.
And so I was now interviewing for the first time really ever with 4 kids at home that were trying to be doing school at home. And it was just miserable. Like, the interview process is soul crushing. And I just found myself, I was like crying all the time, every night. I'm like, this is awful. And so I finally like remembered like everything I had gone through in trauma. And I was like, I know you shouldn't be alone and isolated in your feelings. Does anybody want to meet up for virtual coffee? And then people did. So I was doing it like one day a week, and then it was at East Coast time, and then people were like, what about West Coast time? So then I was like doing double sessions at one point, like Fridays I was doing in the morning, taking a break for an hour or two, and then doing in the afternoon. And it was not like, I'm an introvert. I say I'm an introvert, but I like by that I was like, I enjoyed it, but I didn't like want to people anymore for like the rest of the weekend. That was just too intense. But then we just kept going, and like people were like, hey, why don't you have a Slack? And so I think Brian initially He was like, here's a Slack. I'm like, okay. And then he was like, let's do lunch and learns. Okay. Then we did a newsletter. And then I've always wanted a podcast. And Cameron, I think, was like, when are we going to do the podcast? And you were like, let's do a podcast. So we just kept going with it.
Yep.
And Dan did hire me back for a while.
Yeah.
So.
As soon as I was able to, I did.
He only fired me for a little bit.
Oh, got it. Fired you. That's not the right word. You're using the word incorrectly. I feel like.
Oh, what is the definition?
I feel like if you're gonna fire somebody, it has to be for like a reason. It's laid off is maybe what, although it probably doesn't really apply to contractors, but like that's closer to what it is, right? Laid off means the company has to stop, can't pay you.
However you want to justify it in your head, Dan.
God. Dude, you better watch, or you're going to get fired again, because
you can't fire me. I don't work for you anymore.
I definitely can, and I will.
You can't fire me if I don't work for you.
You can't tell me, don't tell me my truth, okay?
All right, you go ahead and you try and fire me and see how that goes. Are you firing me as part of the as your podcast co-host?
Mm-hmm. No, I don't think a lot of people tune into the Just Dan podcast. Dan Talks to Himself podcast.
I would tune into the Dan Talks to Himself podcast.
Yeah, but you just heckle me, so.
Yeah, I would probably heckle you.
Yeah.
Well, tomorrow when I speak at PubConf, you're allowed to heckle me, though.
Yes.
Please heckle me.
Yes, I will.
All right.
Are you glad or sad that I didn't say, yell, what up, Beck, at the beginning of your talk this morning? I thought about it.
I think I'm glad that you did not do that.
All right, I made the right choice.
I was already super nervous,
Well,
that's
why I didn't do it. I didn't want to.
Would have been very. I'm not really sure what would have happened.
I just I figured you would just break into a laughing thing where you couldn't stop laughing, and which would have been entertaining for me, but probably not for you.
No.
That's why I made the right choice.
And then I would have just hid in a hole.
Just wanted you to know.
I would have just stood behind the screen and then.
I considered it and then chose not to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thanks for being there.
Yeah, I feel like 10 years ago, me would have done it, and then realized it was a bad idea after, but like wouldn't have put it together beforehand, that was a bad idea.
I feel like that my brothers definitely would have done that.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
All right, we have more questions.
I'm learning. You do?
What does community mean to you?
Community, I don't know.
I think community is a group of people that have some shared sense of belonging. And there can be different degrees of that, right?
Yeah.
Like you all might like to go hiking, and that can be a sense of community. Or it can be people that are, I love true crime podcasts. So, and actually my favorite true crime podcasters live in Kansas City.
Whoa.
So I thought about trying to get them to come, can you come be part of our live podcast? But I wasn't sure how we were going to talk about murder and virtual coffee at the same time. Although I have no, I'm not going to take you down that tangent.
Oh, no.
Sorry. So some sense of belonging. And then there's different degrees and ways of expressing that sense of belonging.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah. And the other word that I would use is connection, right? It's
Yeah.
like belonging and connection. And maybe you can't feel belonging without connection. I don't know. But that's the other side of it is connecting with people, right? Okay, so I'm a Guardians fan, and I don't know. We were talking about this last night, which is why it's in my head. But your regional sports team, lots of times you're a fan of or whatever, and you get some sense of belonging from that, right? It's a whatever, you have the hat or whatever.
Yeah, when I was in the airport, there was somebody wearing WVU tennis shoes in front of me, and I graduated from WVU. I taught there, and it was that guy's my friend. I don't know that guy.
Right, and you might connect, and that creates a connection. It creates a connection. I mean, you were the only one because you didn't probably say.
Yeah, no, I thought about saying let's go Mountaineers, but then I got a little embarrassed, so I didn't.
That's probably the right call. Also.
Yeah.
my mom does stuff like that, or with the Ohio State people,
Yeah.
It's never fun for me anyway. But yeah, I mean that's it. Like, right, the belonging is I think that's like the real key, and then that sense of connection is also so.
I was getting off the escalator here earlier,
Yeah.
and some guy was waving, and I thought he was waving at me, and then I waved back full-heartedly at him, was actually waving at the guy behind me.
Yeah.
Then I didn't feel like I belonged. I felt very embarrassed for myself.
You were not in his community of waving people.
I was not part of that.
It happens to me like once a year, I'd say. Really bad, just like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people here, so it's easy.
Yeah. I hope he forgets my face. Let's see here. Okay, here's another question.
It's my face.
At in-person events, what are some techniques or tactics you use for starting a conversation with a stranger? I am terrified of talking with strangers, and I'm on booth duty while I'm here for work at DeepGram.
Yeah.
And I guess it almost makes it a little bit easier because I'm I'm part of DeepGram. We're a speech-to-text API company, so at least I can do the spiel. But sometimes I told a woman I liked her glasses.
What's wrong with that?
No, that's how I get to talk to people.
Oh, sure, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Give them a compliment.
Sure, yeah. But I would say only compliment, clothes and stuff, right?
Yeah, you have to be careful what you compliment.
Especially if you're not a woman.
Yeah, don't be
just don't.
You have really nice eyes.
No, yeah,
That will get creepy.
Yeah. No, I don't have any good strategies because I'm really bad at it. Also, I'd say one
Do you
strategy.
talk to people at the table, lunch table?
Sure, sort of.
Yeah.
I mean, they were talking to me. What I was going to say was, if you go with a friend, you know, it's much easier to actually talk to other people if you already have somebody that you're with that you do know, because Bekah and I sat next to each other at the lunch table, and then other people just sat down, and we weren't I don't know, and then we just started chatting, and that's cool. It's, again, also hard for me. I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
They're at this conference, they're doing a bingo thing where they're trying to get you to go to all the speaker table or the sponsor booths. You can see some of these behind us, and so you have this little card, you get little stamps, and if you get them all, you get entered in something raffle for I don't know what.
Yeah, I don't know.
But anyway, so now I'm going to all these booths that I don't have any interest in going to, and trying to make conversations. I feel bad just being stamp my thing, okay, bye, and so I'm always so what do you guys do?
Yeah, we got a lot of that at our booth. I'm it's okay, you don't have to talk to me if you don't want to.
One of the people was have you heard of us? I'm no.
Oh, no.
I haven't.
That's awkward.
And also, I'm not looking for a job. And that's one of the, a lot of these people are here to hire, which makes a lot of sense. But I probably wouldn't, I don't know if this is a common thing, the get your thing stamped at every booth thing, but I imagine that a lot of these booths, they're used to the people that come up are the people that are looking for jobs, because that's the reason they're here, and I'm no, I don't. They're well, we have some positions available in front end, and I'm yeah, I'm good. I don't know what to say. I don't have the, I don't know, I feel a lot of people are just good at saying things in ways that make sense to people.
My dad loves talking to strangers. I talked to a stranger in the airport, and I texted him Dad, he's so proud of me. This guy used to live in Pittsburgh. Now he lives in Atlanta, and he's been there for 10 years. And I had that whole conversation all by myself.
That's impressive. Yeah.
And he was isn't that amazing? And I was no, Dad, it's not. I don't want to do that all the time. I mean, the guy was really nice, and I would have had more conversation with him, but
no, I didn't.
I think getting involved too. If you're a speaker, then people will talk to you. So that's a good way to do it.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, I'd say the other times that I've had fun at conferences, I've been with the speakers, not because I was a speaker necessarily, but I just either knew the organizers or whatever. Yeah. And or just, there was one event in Florida that I went to where they just had their after party or whatever. And of course, all the speakers were there, and I just kind of tagged along, and ended up at a smaller thing. And that's for me, I do much better in smaller settings, smaller groups of people or whatever. And so yeah, I'd say to go back to the original question, right? Your strategies for this sort of thing. Yeah, my main strategy is bring a friend.
Yeah, it is really
That's
good. Last year at KCDC, James Quick was here, and I just like followed him around like everywhere.
That's what I told Bekah I was going to do to Bekah, except that she's just sitting in this booth the whole time, and that's less.
Not the whole time.
No, not the whole
Some of the time I'm not.
Obviously,
And
right
I'm
now,
like podcasting.
you're right
Yeah.
here, which is cool.
I got to go back to the booth after this though.
Yeah.
But then tomorrow I'm free in the afternoon.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, so I would say bringing a friend is nice, and it doesn't even have to be like a friend. Just put it out there on Twitter or whatever social media. Like, hey, is anybody going? Want to meet up?
Yeah. Yep. That's another good strategy as well. Yeah, I did the same thing.
Yeah.
With Rosella, I was trying to get her to come find us at lunch because she was at your talk, and I didn't know that. And I missed her. But anyway.
It is hard when you're by yourself. I mean, I've been to conferences that were terrible experiences because, like, I can't remember which one it was, within the last year, like, I would go sit down at the lunch table and people would just, like, stand up and walk away, and then I'd just be sitting there by myself.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, all right, I'm just going to continue to sit here by myself.
Yeah. No, I think I've only gone to one, like, big conference by myself, and I just turned into, like, a mole person. Like, I honestly, like, put my headphones on, I'd read my book or something, open my computer. I'm not good at it. That's why it's nice to have a friend.
The other thing would be you can talk to speakers, So if you are there by yourself, then go up to the speaker and talk, or like what our badges say if we're speakers or not, and what company. Oh, mine doesn't say what company I'm with. Maybe because I'm a speaker. I'm not really sure. Does yours?
No,
yours says attendee. Well, you can just go up to him and be like, so, I see you're an attendee too.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that I imagine saying, and then, realize it's a bad idea, and then,
Jokes are a good way. Just go up to somebody random and tell them a joke. I think that's a good idea.
My father-in-law is the same way, I think, as your dad, and he'll do the same thing. He'll drop a joke or, like, just random, thing, or make a comment, and, like, One time he was, we were on vacation, heard a lady talking to her friend at the grocery store, and was like, she was telling it wasn't like a personal, it was a personal story, but not like a, private story, but like, and then saw her at some other store, like, later, and was like, hey, how about that thingy thing?
Oh, that's creepy.
Oh, no, I know. I'm like, that's a horrible idea. And he's like, yeah, and she acted kind of weird about it. I'm like, yeah, no kidding, man. So don't do that.
No.
Yeah.
That's why I bolt my door shut in the hotel and stack up furniture against the door.
And he's not creepy. That's the thing, He's just like, he thought it would be funny, and it wasn't.
That's not.
He didn't keep following her. So.
Saw her again a year later and brought it up again.
Right, showed up at her house. Anyway, sorry, Phil. I love you. Do we have any more questions?
Okay, Travis followed up. I always like slapping language and framework stickers on things, but they seem better for keeping the conversation going than starting it. Yeah, that can be a good way to do it.
What?
Like language or framework stickers, like talking about those things that you do, like as a conversation starter. Like if my water bottle had a React sticker on it.
Talk to me about React.
Oh, React too.
Yeah.
Hey.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good idea. I started talking about Tailwind to one of the sponsor booths that I was having random conversations with, and I'm pretty sure I bored them because I just like saw their eyes crossing. Not bored them, but like I went off on a Tailwind tangent, and they were not interested in that content.
You can also go up to each of the booths and practice a different accent. So try the same conversation.
Oh yeah.
In a different accent every time.
How many accents? What accent do you got? What's your?
Oh, I can't do any accents.
You can't do any accents?
No.
You can't do a German accent?
No.
What about?
Ambrose is really good. He's been practicing his British accent.
Got the get to the chopper. We need to add the react to the remix. Now, Bekah.
I'm not gonna try. I'm not even. I was thinking about it. Like, I think I can do that. I can't do that.
Every time I think I can speak in a British accent, it does not go well. I feel like I need to get warmed up on a British accent.
I like mixed British and Australian, but I hear that is not uncommon. Like my coworker, my teammate he is from England, and he said whenever he's in the U.S., people either think he's from Australia or England. They're not usually really sure. And he asked one of the people when we were together, she's like, "Oh, that accent." He's like, "Where do you think I'm from?" And she was like, "It's either British or Australian." I was like, "Yep."
Yeah, I went to Scotland like a long time ago. Before kids, so more than 6 years ago. I don't know how much more, but no, I really practiced it when I was there. I felt like I had a pretty good Scottish. Oh no, it's the passport thing. I think it keeps recording. I think it's just a screensaver. I think it keeps recording when it does that, but I didn't want to risk it. Anyway, yeah, I had a good Scottish accent going for a while. Learned some good words too. Have you heard the word shuggled?
What?
Shuggled. Shuggled is like shaken,
Oh.
like shooken up, Is a bus driver who was driving over some bumpy stuff and she was like something about sorry to get you all shuggled or something. It was really fun. I like accents. I'm not like good at practicing them, but it's a good idea.
Yeah.
All right.
Practice your accents.
I feel like the German one is my go-to.
It's a good word.
It's like a quirky German, Like,
quirky German.
Yeah, not like a serious German. There's like serious German and there's like, fun, silly German. It's like Hans and Franz, from Saturday Night Live.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Saturday Night Live is on too late.
I mean, it's from when we were like kids, so it's not like a thing that
I
we
know the
watched.
cheerleaders.
The cheerleaders?
Yeah.
Like
Tacos,
Will Ferrell?
burritos, what's coming out of your speedos? There's Bobby Fischer. Where is he? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Those are, and Get Off the Shed. I used to like that. That was Chris Farley, I think.
I don't know that one. But anyway, we've gone way off the beaten path here. Thanks, Travis. I'm blaming Travis for that one.
Yeah.
All right. Is that the last
I think that we've covered everything.
Okay. All right. I was kind of expecting some of our friends to stop by and say hi, but
Well, it's also really hard to hear.
well, sure. But
I know
that
that they're at talk. A number of them are at talks. So
all right, cool. Well, this was fun.
this was an excellent in-person
I hope
podcast
that
experience.
Yes, it was excellent. I'm sorry that we weren't able to live stream it, but well, if you're
We did
listening
our
to this-
best.
If you listen to this, then I've already published it, so I don't need to talk about when I published
Yes.
it. Cool.
All right, and we'll be back next week with another podcast.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm having some technical issues with Descript, and I'm trying to get Bogdan's out. So
Yeah. So if anybody works at Descript,
yeah, hopefully we'll get that sorted out soon.
oh, actually, I know someone that works at Descript.
Excellent.
All right.
Have them call me.
As usual, we're very good at concluding our podcast episode.
Yes, this has been the Virtual Coffee podcast.
Live edition. Live from Kansas City.
Beautiful Kansas City. I've seen about 2 square feet of it because the hotel is right next to the conference center, but it's been cool so far. So
Love Kansas City.
Yes.
It's a good place.
we'll be back Wednesday. I'll be back Wednesday night. So
Yeah.
is that when you're going back Wednesday early? Or Thursday or Tuesday?
I leave on Wednesday.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well,
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Virtual Coffee Podcast. This episode was produced by Dan Ott and Bekah Harat-Weigel. If you have questions or comments, you can hit us up on Twitter at virtualcoffeeio or email us at podcast@virtualcoffee.io. You can find the show notes, sign up for the newsletter, check out any of our other resources on our website, virtualcoffee.io. If you're interested in sponsoring Virtual Coffee, you can find out more information on our website at virtualcoffee.io/sponsorship. Please subscribe to our podcast and be sure to leave us a review. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.